presenting this as a business entity basics because as we work with people starting out in business, we realizing how often people have no idea what to do and which type of entity is necessary at what stage, or for their own needs or for the actual business. Also, the fact that there's federal, there's state, there's municipality, so like local. So we thought, why not do a quick workshop, just give the basics, kind of explain it like to a 5-year-old. I know I benefited once for a simple explanation. So hopefully this can be very, very helpful. Now, I do have to disclaim that we are not attorneys. We're two business women who help women start businesses, and we are not CPAs. We did not go to any of the law schools or anything else, or don't have any license, but we do work closely with trusted resources who are CPAs and business attorneys who can help and answer any kind of legal questions. All right. With that, let's get started. So a little bit about us. We are a lab that basically like an incubator that helps women and sometimes men. We don't discriminate, but majority we just focus on women. Start businesses, both tech and non-tech businesses. So if you want to open a salon, we can help you get started and kind of point you in the right direction, help you with the business plan and everything else. Or if you want to start up the next AI tech startup and stuff like that, then we'll help you direct towards the right resources for that specific thing. So oftentimes all the incubators and labs are focusing primarily on tech startups. And that's the one thing that we've seen being like a serious gap, is that it's not always about the app and it's not always about the tech. So everybody wants to have, everyone who wants to start a business shouldn't have to kind of not know where to go, but that's often the case. A little bit about myself and Ruslana. We are both pretty experienced with 25 years in corporate world. Ruslana is on business development side and go-to-market expert, who's also a serial entrepreneur with multiple businesses. And I'm in the corporate world for 25 years, who decided to go on my own. My specialty is innovation and bringing new products and ideas to market, usually for large corporations. And now I'm extending this beyond larger corporation and government and more into small and medium-sized businesses. Now, what this workshop is and isn't. So it is an overview of common entity options. It is an educational kind of workshop to kind of help you understand the options that you have to play with and help you decide what the next steps are. Referrals to trusted CPAs and attorneys that specialize in specific advices needed for your situation. What it is not, this workshop is not legal or tax advice. It is not a step-by-step filing instructions, and it is absolutely not a substitute for a professional CPA or attorney advice. Okay, so we'll start with the basics, which is why business structure matters. You do want to file or form a business entity in order to protect your personal assets. It does have an impact on taxes and income. It affects the credibility with banks and clients. Oftentimes, they will have requirements to have an entity officially formed and have specific like employee identification numbers and other things. And then it determines how easily you can grow as a business, or it just stays as a, kind of like a hobby. Now, most common mistakes, advice from the social media. We all know how trustworthy that could be. Copying what someone else is doing, asking your friend, or your next door neighbor. Filing first, thinking later. So going into it without a strategy, never a good idea. Wrong entity choice, wrong state. States do matter. Mixing finances, never a good idea. Missing annual filings, not being compliant. Missing requirement agreements, missing mandatory reports and fees, additional licensing, overcomplicating too early. That's also kind of like the other side of things. And then trying to do it all on your own with I don't know, not much of knowledge is probably not a good idea as well. Although people try. So the business entity, and I'm just trying to check if we've got anyone in the waiting room. Nope, we're all good. Okay, so the business entity types. The easiest one is the sole proprietorship. Also an easy one is general proprietorship, and that's same as sole proprietorship or only more than one person, so like a partner. Limited liability company is one or more people, and it's most commonly used by small businesses. And S Corp commonly misunderstood as a business entity, but it is not. It is a tax utilization or tax designation, so to speak. It's going to get more complex business structure. There's shares involved, there's multiple people involved, there's boards of directors and treasurers. And, of course, that comes with more responsibilities and regulations, which we'll dive into it in a second. So, okay, basic sole proprietorship. It's great for starting out. It's great for hobbies. It's great for single consultants. It's great for testing new ideas. So if you've got a startup idea, for example, we're in Silicon Valley, so that's a very common ask. Try and run that idea and validate it first before jumping into spending money on forming the business, getting everything set up, and then struggling to get clients or struggling to get paid. And then you've got to close the business. That's also paperwork. And it's just like complicated. Could get a little complicated. So it's always best to, if it's you just starting out or things are very simple, you don't have a lot of liabilities, just, sole proprietorship is really the best way to go. No liability protection. So if you've got things to lose, probably not a good idea. If you don't have a house, you don't have a lot of savings, things like that, this is probably a good place to start. But again, once you have things to protect, you might want to look into more complex things that protect you from the liability perspective. Again, not a CPA advice, not a attorney advice. This is just purely coming from having multiple businesses and gone through anything from a sole proprietorship and freelancing and consulting to more complex structures, and just kind of learning on my own, figuring things out as I go. And I just wanted to share this information. Now, some registration may be required, so it's not as easy as like, I don't have to do anything, that doesn't work that way. So local business licenses still matter. There's tax certificates that still matter. Many cities and counties require completely separate licensing and permits to operate from the federal and state filing information. So again, having the resources and the knowledge of what you need to do and having the right strategy, like I need to do A, B, and C, and in what order is really important before you just kind of jump in. DBA, fictitious business name, filing to operate under the name that isn't your legal given name. So, like if I wanted to do a Polina Tarnopolsky type of business, that would be, I don't need a DBA. But if I were to call it, the 5D Global Lab, need a DBA now because I am now a separate entity from this business, so to speak. Now, state sales tax permits, when you sell taxable goods, some states require it, some states require service taxes as well. There's employer requirements if you're hiring employees, running payroll, workers' comp, things like that. My general rule in business, once it's not just you and you are planning on sharing it with other people, go the extra mile, get a little bit more protection. It just, when it's you, you've got only answering to yourself. Your liability is limited to a degree, but once things get more complicated, you want to be a little bit more protected. Now, be very diligent about the industry permits. So a specific industry like food industry, childcare, construction, things like that, they'll require completely whole set of different licenses that has nothing to do with your entity. That is in addition to, and you really need to know which permits you need based on your industry. Now, common use cases for the sole proprietorship. Let's say you're testing the waters. We've got Mary. Mary has a home-based baking business, and she wants to sell to friends, coworkers, few neighbors, people she knows, people she can trust, that can be honest with her and kind of like nice. So she will focus on learning and actually getting the business rather than building out the business, building up the clientele, rather than focusing on like what kind of legal entity and how many attorneys and CPAs do I need to spend money on. So it works for very low risk. It works for easy to start, and it's good for testing an idea. Now, where it breaks, once you start making consistent money, once you have strangers coming in, once this becomes an actual business with revenue, once there is liability, things do matter, and they are, you've got to pay attention to those things, right? You've got to protect what you're building. Now, partnerships. Partnerships, pretty much similar to sole proprietorship, is just more than one owner. It includes shared responsibilities and liabilities. It can get very legally complex. I mean, when there's more than one person, it always gets complicated. There's also different type of partnerships. There's professional and more complex partnerships. And I will always say this from experience, always consult an attorney. When there's more than one person, always consult an attorney. It's always better to just know where you're know that you're protected and that your partners are protected rather than regret it later. Now, a use case for a partnership, friends starting a business together, right? So let's say Alex and Jordan decided to start a small event planning business together. Again, they split the tasks, they share the profit once they have them, they trust each other, they don't overthink the structure at first, they just need to get started. They need to generate revenue, then they can get more complicated. So they get clients, things get started, they can build and grow their business. Now, it works for the shared effort, honesty, people are handling their responsibilities. It simplifies a starting point, and it's good for early collaboration. Now, where it really breaks is one partner makes a mistake or there's mistrust issues. I mean, we all know that partnerships can go south pretty easily. So it's always better to, again, protect yourself. If expectation change, if money or responsibilities are not clearly defined. So just because it's a sole proprietorship, again, sit down, form a strategy, write everything out, share the responsibilities, clearly state everything that each one of you will contribute as you go, and then when you grow, and then you can make a decision on what kind of formation you will need. Now, my favorite, and this is probably the most flexible, the most easiest thing to easiest formation to work with, and it has the most flexibility. So it's a separate legal entity. It's not a tax strategy, as sometimes people have a misconception on this. It's a liability protection. It creates a legal barrier between you and your business and personal assets. It allows for a lot of flexibility in ownership. It can be taxed in multiple ways. It gives you immediate credibility, and it allows you to run payroll and pay yourself a salary. It's very commonly used for small businesses because not only is it easy for starting out, it's also easy to scale and change things around as you grow. So there are differences between a single member LLC, meaning a single owner, and a multi-member LLC. And something that I've learned because I have a few businesses with my husband, husband and wife is considered a single member. I did not know that until that became a problem in my paperwork. So again, back to the attorneys and the CPAs for advice to correct my paperwork because I didn't do my homework beforehand. So a formal operating agreement is needed. And interestingly enough, it also will be required by a bank once you go in and want to open a bank account. They will require either an operating agreement or an article of incorporation. So it's not just enough that you'll give them the EIN number. They want to see how you structure the whole operations. Now, it depends on friendliness towards businesses and protection. So knowing which state you want to file in or form your LLC also important. And again, that's an advice of a professional. Now, rules and fees do apply. They vary by state. They do have yearly fees, or taxation depends on the profitability of your business. Again, it varies state by state. Now, use case for limited liability company taking it seriously. Let's say Nina leaves her job and starts a consulting business, something that I did. She knows her clients will be paying her directly. She knows that her personal finances need to be kept separately from her business. So she forms an LLC, and that kind of helps her to be legitimate, that she's not just on her own kind of freelancing. It allows her to do all the right things and look presentable as if she would be an official company with, maybe multiple people. She can also hire multiple people and run payroll and pay herself a salary, stuff like that. So this works for liability protection. It works for professional credibility. It's flexible for growth. It's got many, many, many benefits. Where it breaks, the tax treatment, ongoing compliance, and choosing the right state. So again, it is a business entity, and it should be taken seriously as that. Now, S Corp. An S Corp is something you get taxed as. It is not a business entity. This is not something that you go like, oh yeah, I want my business entity to be an S Corp. No, you first need to open either an LLC or a C Corp. And then, again, based on your tax person, your CPA, you should understand why you would tax it as an S Corp. It doesn't fit everybody's situation, and it's something that can be done later on anytime before the tax filing. So that's the good part. So it applies to both LLC or C Corp. You can open a C Corp and designate it as a as a S Corp, which again, something you should be strategizing with your CPA. And then savings on self-employment taxes, and then it also adds compliance and payroll requirements that would not otherwise be in LLC or sole proprietorship. Now, a use case for an LLC with an S Corp tax selection. Same business, just a different structure. So Taylor starts a marketing service business, forms an LLC. Things are simple. She's protected. She's growing her business. And a couple of years later, her business is stable, is generating a lot of revenue or a good, significant revenue. Taylor is paying themselves regularly at this point. And she learns that how you elect to be taxed for your business entity can greatly affect your tax bill at the end of the year. And there's nothing that will change on your business structure. So it's still an LLC, but what happens is you're being taxed differently, right? And all it takes is one little form that your tax person would file. You can do it yourself. It's free. You just basically, send it into the IRS, and you can do it by the tax due date. So why this works, the business that is no longer in testing mode, the businesses that are generating significant amount of money. I mean, if we're generating $5,000 in your business, you're probably not going to be hurting if you just keep it as is. If you're generating 250 or 500, when things are becoming more significant, when a tax bill matters, you want to consult a professional to guide you what is the best approach for you. Income is consistent and predictable. The owner is ready for more structure and compliance. The LLC provides flexibility to change the tax treatment without starting over, right? Without a lot of like redos and refilings and stuff like that. Now, where it does break is when you do this right off the bat. When you're just starting out, it can get a little complicated tax-wise. You don't want to do it. Assuming it's an automatically cheaper option, it is not. And not understanding the payroll and compliance requirement is also something every business entity or business owner should understand. Payroll is not an easy kind of thing to do, and it's got a lot of compliance attached to it, and there's a lot of filings every quarter, every year. There's just complexities that come in with payroll. Now, C Corp. This is an entity that my partner Ruslana prefers to deal with. It's C Corporation. It's commonly known as C Corp. It's commonly known as Inc. So when you see somebody's name like Acme Inc. Or incorporated, it's a separate legal entity. And the easiest way that was explained to me, and I'm going to share the same knowledge, is just think of it as a completely separate person from you. So you are you, and a C Corp is a completely different kind of entity, completely different person. It's totally separated from you. It's even treated by law as an artificial person. It's able to conduct business independently of its owners. That's why it's often used for complex structures, investors, foreign owners, holding corporations, like things that are a lot more complex than just like a small business, like a salon or restaurant or something like that. But like if you do have a business, like a startup, and you are looking for investment, this is usually the best bet, because you will have to then either designate your LLC as a C Corp, or you have to actually structure your business right off the bat as a C Corp. Again, can't stress enough how important it is to have a strategy and understand where you're starting and where you're going. Now, limited liability, um, the corporation, incorporation, probably C Corp gives you the best protection with the liability. The owners are shareholders and they're generally not personally responsible for anything that person is doing. Oh, not the person, the company is doing. It's not responsible for companies' debts, protecting personal assets, and many other things. But again, it's how it's structured, it's how it's treated, and how things are conducted operationally. Ownership is divided into shares of stocks, which can be bought and sold. That's why when you do investment, that's a very common thing to do. And of course, it gives you credibility. You're instantly considered to be bigger, properly done, properly structured. You've got the legal advice, and you do all that fun stuff. Appears more professional to clients, to suppliers, to investors. Some will require that you have only C Corp, like their companies, their franchises, their different services that will sell you a business or allow you to buy into the business, where you will not be allowed to have any other formation other than C Corp. So again, strategy matters more than anything else. And you absolutely must file article of incorporation. There's also board formation. You've got to have treasury. You've got to have secretary. You've got to have minutes. There's a lot of structure that goes behind that. Now, a common use case for C Corp, I've already mentioned some things. So a small team building a tech platform with plans to raise outside investments. They'll know they need it. They'll know they'll have to do fundraising and grow very quickly and share those. When the investors give you the funds, they usually expect something back in return for that, and that usually comes into shares. That's why C Corp is a very common way to do this. Now, why this works? Again, designated for investments, clear ownership structure, and it scales very well if that's the scenario that's best applied for your situation. Where it breaks, it's not for small solo businesses, unless there is a requirement for it. Don't do it if it's side hustle. It's got cost and double taxation and all sorts of complexities. You'll be buried in paperwork if you do it as a side hustle, and it really shouldn't even be done for that. And then founders who do not need investors. Do an LLC, talk to your CPA, see what is the best approach to the LLC, and you're good to go. Now, let's get into the most unpleasant part, and that's government and its licensing and permits. There's no shortage of those. Filing a business entity is one little tiny step in a journey that requires paperwork when you form a business. The more complex your business, the more paperwork you're going to have. Now, additional requirements. So when you form an entity, and you can totally do it on your own, and I will get into details on that, what you will find is that that's just the first step, right? Then you've got to do a bunch of other things that, and as commonly with any government structure, they don't talk to each other. One branch of government does their thing, and then it's up to you to figure out what the rest of the branches, your state, your federal, your local, your county, your municipality, your type of business, what kind of permits you need. There are resources for that, but it's something that's on you, that needs to be done, because even sometimes I find that professionals do not know nuanced things, especially if they are not residing in that county, but they can get you information, right? So, business license, business tax certificate, again, often requires by counties and cities, business tax registration. DBAs, we touched on this. That's for the legal name registration. You do not need to do that with an LLC. You only need to do this with the sole proprietorship, the DBA. You can do a DBA, but that requires some complexities, and it's usually on a case by case basis. Sales, so sales tax, when you're selling goods, there's a tax that you collect in most of the states. You do require to have a like a seller permit. There's positives to it. You can get a wholesale pricing on that. And then most states require it. And you're also required for certain services. So some states, I don't know which ones, but some states will charge tax on specific services. And then we get into the complexities of state employer tax accounts and payroll tax setup and workers' compensation requirements. And then you've got the zoning and home occupation permits. Yes, working from home is pretty common, but you do need to check with your county and your local government whether your particular business type is requiring an operational permit, even if you're conducting it out of your own house, right? So, like for example, if you're running a daycare, you will need that, right? Daycare from home. So then you've got food-related businesses, childcare, transportation, constructions, and things that require additional licensing, that is professional licensing, in order for you to operate as a construction person, like a general contractor, may need a license. In order for you to operate childcare, there's different licensing, different sizes, different type of childcare. You can open a food-related business and not get a license, and there's a whole slew of requirements for that. So again, make sure you know what you're doing and which steps come after which steps, because it could get it could get long, and the wait periods and things, like if you do things out of order, it could set you back in time. And when you start a business, time is of an essence. So again, plan things out, be super, super, super detail oriented, or seek someone else's advice who understands these things and can guide you with the right strategy. All right, we're almost at the end of this, and then we'll have some Q&A. So these are common business registration steps. Again, strategy, 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 strategy. Just keep saying it. State filing, important for your documentation. State filing is required because there's a federal government and you get an EIN number from the federal government, but the state you're forming your business and the state you're residing in matters for doing. Federal tax ID, EIN, the best way to explain it, you have a social security number. This is your business social security number. Employer identification number, you will need it. The bank will require it. No matter what formation you have, this is the one number you need to have. There's also a different number you'll see, and it gets people confused. TIN, that's a separate thing, and I am not gonna get into it. It's a little more complex, but you do need to speak to someone who will guide you why you need a TIN versus an EIN. But the more common situation is EIN. Also, you're going to have to give this number out everywhere, and you don't want your personal social security out there. So even if you are doing work like 1099 and you're just consulting and you're relying on a sole proprietorship type of thing, it's always good to have it. It's, doesn't take you that long. They usually do it in about 10 days. Internal governance and compliance, you do need to understand which business requires which internal governance and compliance. And absolutely keep your finances separate. It's easier for taxation. It's easier for audit if you ever get audited. It's just easier to keep your personal, family, whatever life finances separate from your business finances, because you also want to be able to track what your cost is, what your profit is, what are you losing, what are you gaining, how much tax you're going to have to pay. All these things do matter, and you really just make it as a practice, no matter of the business formation. Even if you haven't formed a business and you're kind of testing the waters, make it a habit, like brushing your teeth. Keep your finances separate. That's kind of like the way I explain it usually. Okay, so before we get to the Q&A, I'd like to say that there's plenty of resources. People just don't know where to look. So we've included some of the most trustworthy resources. The SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration, again, the IRS, the State Business Registry, the Small Business Development Center, they all have really good resources. Not all the resources in one place, of course, that would be too easy, but it does have a lot of guidance and templates and checklists and informational resources. What it does not have, it will not file the business entity for you, but you can find experts on it as well. Now, SCORE, it's my personal favorite. SCORE is a great free nonprofit resource and training place where you can get a bunch of training, you can get templates, you can get guidance, you can get, even sometimes mentorship. There's so many resources, and they have managed to put things in one place. So, like, for example, unless I need something specifically from the SBA website, I will go to SCORE because I know I can get it all in one place. Or ChatGPT, but even ChatGPT doesn't always give you everything you need, or whatever search engines. Now, there's plenty of online filing platforms. They'll require a membership fee. They'll do it for you. It'll cost you much more. It could get very expensive because they're running a business. And if you want to do it yourself, it'll cost you less, but you will need to understand the paperwork that you need to get you through it. A lot of them are really good, where they have wizards and they provide you questions and you can do step by step. And lastly, 5D Global Lab. So Ruslana and I have a lot of experience, and we also have a lot of trusted resources. And so we're able to provide you with the strategy and a full service and guidance. We at the lab do not provide legal or tax advice. What we do provide is the access to the resources and the guidance. So if you are thinking of opening a business, click on this link. We'll send out this slide deck, so you'll have it. Click on this link. We'll have a 30-minute chat for you. We'll ask you questions. You'll tell us what you're thinking, what worries you, and how you want to proceed, and what your needs are, and we'll be able to guide you in the right direction. Our 30-minute consultation is completely free. So just so we're getting that out of the way, because sometimes people just reluctant because it could cost a lot of money. There's a summarized, summarized, really simple slide in here. I'm not going to get into it. I've been talking for 40 minutes. But this is kind of at the glance sort of cliff notes or summary. It gives you all the key points from the entire presentation. A little bit about the lab. So we basically help you start your business, launch your idea with clarity, confidence, the tools, the resources, help you understand which way is up and which way is down. If we don't know something or it's not within our wheelhouse, we have a network of trusted partners that we work with that offer tons of services and tons of businesses and can guide you, and you don't have to worry and wonder whether they were, if they're trusted or not, if you can trust them or not. We also offer full services for the business formation, and the full service is $300, and I like to call it do it for you, or we do it for you. Basically, you tell us what you want, and we form a strategy and basically do all the work for you. And then the same services are offered with our specific membership, which is the next step. Please check it out. You can just click on these boxes, check out our plans. We have a free plan where you can get the resources. You don't have to pay us anything. We're still gonna, guide you to some degree. And then we have the next step, and it's a $99 per month, and it gets you access and consultation with us on a regular basis.